Hi boys and girls, it's Show back with another video. Today we're going to cover, it's game week 10 in the Premier League now, quite far into the league season, and we're going to obviously look at the fixtures coming up and obviously how we may incorporate our fancy Premier League teams again this week. Let's begin with Leicester versus Arsenal, and this is the early kickoff. Leicester, coming off some decent form, obviously doing well, progressing in the cup as well. I did expect them to start making some waves in the season soon. We know what kind of outfit they are. We know that they're going to be sort of knocking on the door for the Europa League again this season. So this fixture, with the way Arsenal have been playing as well, is tough to predict. It's one of those ones where you could see either team coming away with it and continuing with their good run of form. Arsenal, quite difficult to beat nowadays under Arteta. They've really found an identity. They're pulling together more than they have done in many a season now, in terms of not only the work ethic but just the ability to game manage more. I think before they were very sort of naive in the way they played, but I think they're starting to sort of get over that now. And actually, some of their sort of fearless young players have certainly helped in that regard, because they've not had that sort of baggage, that label, put to their doorstep. So, yeah, this one, I think, I know Maddison obviously got on the score sheet, and I mentioned in the last video that we did on this theme that he's difficult to predict. They have midfielders with punch that can get points, but the difficulty is that, you just don't know for sure whether they're going to play 60 minutes, half an hour, that type of thing. So, yeah, on this one, we know Tielemans, he's been in good goal-scoring form. If we just go into Leicester's team in terms of his expense, I'm just going to move myself up here. Yeah, so we just got the Leicester players down the side here. So, yeah, Tielemans at a 6.5. It's decent value for how he's performing this season. He's been everywhere. He's been instrumental in terms of the way Leicester have been playing thus far. He's very much, you see him as like a deep line playmaker, guy that strings things together, keeps things ticking. But, he's a brain on the pitch there, and, he knows when to sort of progress up the pitch, when to join the attacks. Now, whether he'll have as much license with, say, Maddison playing in the team as well in games, that's hard to say, and whether he'll obviously keep this up, because this is certainly the most points he's sort of ever had at this stage in the season. So it's difficult on to say whether you've missed the boat with him now, and whether obviously the points going to slide. A bit like Marcus Alonso with Chelsea, it's like I've thoroughly missed the boat with that. Like he was cheap value. Didn't think he would start at the beginning of the season, and he hit the ground running, and now it's been switched over to Ben Chilwell, so it's very hard to predict that one. Whereas this one is Tielemans on the cusp now of sort of just reverting back to type in terms of being more of a standard defensive midfielder, fancy Premier League player, where he's not really going to do much. From what I've watched him, I don't think that'll be the case. At 6.5, that isn't bad. So even against Arsenal at home, like I say, I think Leicester are in a good phase here. Not a bad idea to have a look at some Leicester players. Maddison probably confident now, hadn't scored in like over a year, is now back at it. Something to think about that midfield, like they are good points getters if you can get them on the right wave. Arsenal, I mentioned Smith Rowe, I mentioned Aubameyang's value as well at just a 9.9, and obviously I mentioned Saka as well. They're sort of the three go-to ones out of that team. I wouldn't look much further than that, really. So yeah. Prediction for this one, though, Leicester-Arsenal. I'm backing Leicester on this one. I think they'll end Arsenal's kind of good run here. I think it'll be 2-1 Leicester for this one. So that's my prediction. Moving on to Burnley-Brentford. Now, I backed Ivan Toney for the Brentford, because obviously I mentioned last week about this run of fixtures here. Now, he drew a blank last week, only got me the 2 points. But I don't plan on changing him through this phase. I hope he gets at least a couple of goals during this time here. And yeah, there's just no real point really thinking about it. I think he's a good option. The other person, obviously, that would be a good option for the Brentford team during this phase would certainly be either one of their centre-backs. And I've mentioned countless times about how their centre-backs, are good aerial threats. They should get points. And, I mean, look at these two at the top here. You've got Janssen and Pinnock. Getting loads and loads of points. The value's already increased by 0.2. So, you might want to, if you want to save a bit of value, you might want to consider Aya down here at 4.5 instead. Also starts. Good options there across the centre-backs. And during this run, whether you might think actually on this side of things, well, Ivan Toney might not score. They may prove hard to beat. They might pick up some draws there. Definitely think about getting your Brentford centre-back in there now. It's a good choice. If you've got him on the bench, consider sort of rotating him in and out during that run of games there. Yeah, moving on to Burnley. They weren't bad, if I remember. Let me just quickly check their fixtures here. They've performed reasonably well in the last couple of weeks. I know Chris Wood, he's been struggling, and I mentioned last week how I thought that Chris Wood would be a good option. I thought he would, like in terms of his value, in terms of how Burnley play the aerial threat. Maybe in conjunction with Dwight McNeil would be a good sort of source of points. Especially, like I said, I think they've got two good games. I think it was, if I remember rightly. Let's go back into it. Yeah, it was one last week and into this Brentford home game. From the way he's obviously performed, Chris Wood, it's not really worth it. Obviously, Ashley Barnes would be, if we're looking at it, the cheaper option of the two quite significantly. Now, he's not really hit the ground running as well, and so it really makes you think that they're struggling really, Burnley, as a fancy Premier League outfit. So I would very much look elsewhere from here. I think the only one that has any real value in the Burnley setup at the moment is a combination of Lowton and maybe Cornet at 6. I think Lowton at a 4.4, Cornet at a 6. They might hit the ground running soon. Could be a shout here. So yeah, moving on. I do think this Burnley Brentford game will be tight. Probably won't be the prettiest game. I expect it to be quite close, but I'm backing Brentford all the way here. So I think they'll continue their good run. I'm going to go with a 1-0 Brentford victory here, and maybe a clean sheet for some of those Brentford centre backs that you might be thinking of putting in. So yeah, moving on to Liverpool Brighton. I think Liverpool obviously buoyant in terms of their performance at Old Trafford. It's going to be brimming with confidence. Salah obviously is a must in your team. I stupidly didn't have him captain last week. I went with like a complete gamble on Solomon Rondon just to see what would happen. It didn't work out, but Salah's been sort of keeping me afloat this the last few weeks. So yeah, they're definitely the way I mentioned. I almost predicted the Brighton City game spot on. I went with a 3-1 City victory in that game, and it turned out just to be 4-1 very, very late on. And I do think with their midfield setup at the moment, now Basuma's out, then I think Brighton pretty on the eye at the moment, but they are going to leak goals. So Liverpool at home, I don't see any reason that will change. I think Brighton are going to get back to sort of a bit of shock reality here. So yeah, I think this one will be obviously a comfortable Liverpool win. This one, I think Brighton might draw a blank on it, and I'm going to go 3-0 Liverpool. So that being all said, Alexander-Arnold and Salah, they're the must. I would just keep them in your team indefinitely, at least to the Christmas period when fixtures really start to congest. So yeah, there's not really much to talk about there. And Brighton's perspective, it's certainly a time just to avoid having them in. Certainly, if they're like a defender, maybe you've got a Duffy or maybe you've got a Veltman or something like that in, I'd take them out during this game week. Right, so we'll move that on now. So going on to Man City versus Crystal Palace. Yeah, I mean, obviously Man City coming off a terrific win away from home against Brighton last week. Question of whether they kind of revert to type of how they've been usually playing at the moment, with like Grealish on the left, Foden as your false nine, Gabriel Jesus on the right. Whether they'll mix it up for this game, I don't think they'll mix it up. I think they'll give Crystal Palace the respect that they deserve. They played really well against Arsenal when they got that 2-2 draw, and yeah, Conor Gallagher's obviously been playing terrifically well. Mentioned, he's your kind of like rotational option that's on the cheap there. Definitely worth considering him having in your team. And I just think Man City will give them the respect that they deserve, that they won't sort of mess around, put Sterling in, Mahrez maybe, they'll probably come off the bench. So if you've got a Grealish, Foden's the one at the moment. He's in such a vein of form. And I think Pep Guardiola does ride waves with players. He knows when to rotate players in and out, in the sense that he maybe sees it in training, maybe sees it in a cup competition. He knows someone's on a bit of a wave, and he'll ride it and obviously reap the rewards from it. And I think at the moment, Foden's obviously playing scintillating football, the best football of his career, I would say. And at about an 8, he is about the same price as Grealish. I think he's the no-brainer. And just to kind of make you laugh here, as you can see, I'm the one who's stupidly gone for Jack Grealish. So yeah, don't do that. Get Phil Foden in. So Man City Crystal Palace, this is an easy prediction on this one. I think it's going to be another high-scoring game. I think it'll be 3-1 Man City. Moving on to Newcastle versus Chelsea. Yeah, Newcastle still without a manager. They obviously got a caretaker at the moment. I think Chelsea have returned to form. They had an indifferent game, but that was straight after the international break against Brentford. And obviously played extremely well last week to score so many goals. At the moment, Chilwell seems like a player that you can consider here. I don't really want to go near it. I mean, at the moment, I just feel like I'm going to go in there just at the wrong time, and it'll be Alonso again or something like that, and that will really, annoy me and probably make me want to quit Fantasy Premier League for the season, undoubtedly. So, like I mentioned before about having sort of players that are consistently going to play, that are going to be decent point scorers, and my option really out of the Chelsea defence or sort of defensive structure is Mendy. I do think you might want to move your value elsewhere, get Mendy in. He's going to start every week. He makes saves. He has to make some saves, but he's got a bit of structure in front of him as well, that he might have the odd easy game as well, where you're definitely going to get the clean sheet. I do think that's the option I'd consider here. If you're not going to gamble on Chilwell, which I still think would be a fine option for some of you, then Mendy would be what I'd thinking out. Maybe rejig your goalkeeper if you've gone for a cheaper option, and you can just move some of your value over elsewhere. Newcastle, like I mentioned, Sam Maximin or nothing here. I don't think they're sort of showing anything really at the moment where I'd gamble on a Callum Wilson or like a Willock or anything like that at this stage. If you've got Sam Maximin, probably no problem in keeping him in your team here. I don't see why not. Chelsea should win, but he could easily get a goal and an assist as the sort of one sort of thing that Newcastle do in this game. So there's no real reason to take him out if you've got him. On this one then, I'll just go Chelsea victory, of course. I think Newcastle might put up a bit of a fight on this one. My prediction for this one would be a 2-1 away win for Chelsea. Now, last thing I will just mention on this game, Mount is obviously coming off a hat-trick and an assist in the last game. That won't hold up, I don't believe. If it did, then obviously he's taking his game onto new heights if he does that. The question is actually whether Lukaku is fit. So we're going to bring this up now so I can actually find that out, because I don't know. Yeah, exactly. This might be an option to put in Mount then, because I feel at the moment the reason why he scored so many goals in that game, from watching it, I do think they obviously use Lukaku as a focal point, and obviously try and make runs beyond. But I do just feel like with the formation they put out last week, certainly the link-up was just much better. It flowed much faster in terms of the way they progressed up the pitch. And that was the criticism with Lukaku when he was at United. And I still think, obviously, based on his body type and things like that and sort of a little bit of his natural abilities, he's never going to be an elite player that links up. So a lot of the players that play for Chelsea, your Pulisic's, your Havertz, your Werner's, your Mount, they're tailor-made to be linking up like that and just interchanging and swapping positions. And I really think it benefited Mount in that game. So with Lukaku out, Mount at 7.5, maybe Hudson-Odoi on the back of a goal as well at 5.3. I think it's worth a shout, really. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so moving on this one, we're going to go on to Watford versus Southampton. I think Watford obviously are going to score goals. I mentioned I put in Dennis a couple of weeks back. He fell flat, and with Watford, I think the only consistent player that you can trust is probably Ismail Assar. But obviously, Josh King's on the back of a hat trick. Confident. They're at home against a Southampton team that aren't great. They might give him a bit of a tough test. I cover every time I mention Southampton. I'm the same every week. I just say it's Ward-Prowse or nothing based on penalties and free kicks. And Southampton really don't have much else. They've not carved out enough chances or been clinical enough for an Armstrong or anyone like that to really be effective. And he's had a tough start to the Premier League. They've got some decent fullbacks, and that's really what I was just going to highlight really around Southampton. So just looking at it here, this is the guy that did well. It was Livramento, and I do think these are the players that actually have been doing well for Southampton down the sides. So at 4.4. Him and Salisu really the only two players that I can really think of that would be an option other than Ward-Prowse in this team. So if you were considering it, maybe if you look at Southampton's fixtures, and obviously they've got Watford away here, but Aston Villa at home, who are a bit Jekyll and Hyde, like I mentioned, and they've got Norwich away. It's not a bad run of game it's not a bad 3-game run. If you're gonna consider anyone other than Ward-Prowse, maybe if you like your midfield, you don't really want to put Ward-Prowse in, for example, then the ones I'd be considering are just Salisu and Livramento. And as you can see, they're our two sort of highest point scorers. Actually, Livramento higher than Ward-Prowse. So at 4.4, it's just I think that's good value for a 3-game stint. I'd be putting him in personally. Moving on to Watford, though, like I said, Josh King, Ismail Assar, they're the ones to go for. Josh King, at the moment, his value would have gone up probably a tiny bit. I'll just clarify that here. I'd imagine it's gone up on the back of that hat-trick. It's got a 0.1. I mean, 5.6. Yeah, Dennis is out injured as well. He's confident. Southampton at home. It's a 1-game punt, really, though, whether you do this or not. And like I say, whenever I feel like you maybe got a transfer, you like your team setup, and maybe you're just going to go one transfer in, one transfer out, and you might alternate back the following week, then you've got to be looking at like-for-like value. You don't want to do anything significant, I don't think. Josh King, obviously, he's a confident player, might stay in the goals, but predominantly I'll just say Ismail Assar, nothing for Watford there. So prediction here, I'm going to back Watford for this one. I think it'll be 2-1 Watford. Ranieri, keeps the good times rolling. Moving on to Spurs versus Man United. Man United coming off an absolute shocker against Liverpool. I've mentioned this countless times. I had that rant video, which you should check out later, from after the game, where I obviously covered all the points and sort of the frustrations as a United fan. And I think Spurs away is obviously such a tough fixture when you're against a team that I think has largely been organised, and it has potent threats in Son, and Kane coming back into form as well. Lucas Moura, I think, has been sort of arguably, not in terms of production, especially from a fantasy Premier League perspective, but in terms of consistency, I think Lucas Moura has been their best player. So yeah, I think this will be tougher than people think. 5:30 kickoff, lots of results would have come in, so there's pressure on it. I think this will be Solskjaer's last game in charge. So unless there's a significant change in the team, I don't see us playing particularly well. So I mean, my prediction on this one will be a scrappy 2-2 draw. And maybe get some goals and we salvage something in the game, but it won't really be enough, I don't think, to save him from the axe personally. If you got Spurs players, good time to have him. I think that you'll score goals against Manchester United. I wouldn't put Kane in, but like I say, Lucas Moura, Son, no reason to change it there. But I don't think this will be a clean sheet, so I'd avoid defenders on both fronts there. And if obviously you've got a United player, it's tough to predict at the moment because I really don't think you'll know what team he's going to put out. If he goes like for like from last week, then he's let's be honest, hammered the final nail in his own coffin now if he does that. So tough one this one, but I'd stick with your Spurs attackers, and I'm just going to say it's going to be a 2-2 draw. Moving on to Sunday, Norwich versus Leeds. Norwich. Poor Norwich. I mean, I've got people I know that are Norwich fans. Shout out Benjamin. Henrietta for life. Stephen Fry as well. I just don't. I think this is a good time to play Leeds. I think this is a result. This is a game that Norwich could get something from. Like, I think Leeds have been certainly in and out, indifferent in their form. And at the moment, I'm really not trusting Leeds at all, because I said a couple of weeks ago about their fixture list, and it's still good if we go back on to Fantasy Premier League here. Yeah, moving on to Leeds here. Obviously, Rafinha being sort of the standout man, really. Norwich away. This is sort of the back end of their easy fixture list. But even then, it's been a big disappointment. Obviously, the Bamford getting injured at the start of the run. They were like previous season. They were easy to pick for. Like Dallas and Rafinha and Bamford were all doing very well. At the moment, they seem to be going a bit for a second season syndrome, and I think this is a good time for Norwich to play them. So if you were thinking of a Norwich player, and I do think Gmwk would be a shout roundabout now, because if I've ever the whole time I've said avoid Norwich, and largely that's been true. But I think if you're gonna pick anyone up now, I think it's here, isn't it? This is their fixture list now. This is where they're going to have to start picking up the points. Gmwk at 5.8. Why not? Maybe behind in your fantasy Premier League at the moment. Not many people are going to have him, especially if they're not listening to my video. This good a time as any. Get your Gmwk in and ride the wave. And I'm sure you'll do all right during that fixture list. But prediction here. I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich. I'm backing them to get their first win. 2-1 Norwich against Leeds United. Aston Villa versus West Ham. Aston Villa are just so up and down, and you don't know which team they're going to turn up. And when obviously they do turn up, they're terrific. I mentioned how they were trying to get back to being a little bit harder to beat, playing more on the counter-attack. That's had mixed success as well. Whereas West Ham they've had an identity, they've stuck to it. All the players seem to be playing really well. And it comes from their midfield base predominantly in Rice and Souček, who are absolutely terrific and dynamic in the way that they play. Really sort of bring balance to each other, both physical, both have height. Rice has that driving ability. Souček can get in the box, has the aerial ability. So they bring a bit of everything in midfield, and that really lays the foundation for Soufal and Cresswell to get beyond. Like I mentioned about the number 10 seem to thrive, and that interchangeability between Fornals and Bruce Bowen. Jared Bowen, apologies. And yeah, Ben Rama. I very much think that this is a West Ham team that you can trust to do well, even away from home against teams like this. But I do expect Aston Villa to bounce back. I'm going to back West Ham. I'm going to go a narrow 2-1 win for this one. And yeah, I'd stay just rolling with your West Ham players. If you've got Antonio, if you've got a Ben Rama, like I mentioned, or a Jared Bowen, who would be the cheaper option, but still equally as effective, I'd argue. Then yeah, I'd stick with it. Cresswell, no problem. No reason to change him out in this game. But yeah, so 2-1 West Ham, Aston Villa. Ings is fine if you've got Ings. I mentioned this the other week when it's not a game for clean sheets necessarily. So don't worry about taking out your attacker. If Aston Villa end up getting battered, Ings may still be on the score sheet, and that's what I'd expect. So yeah, if you've got a Villa striker at home, I don't see the point in doing anything with that personally. Yeah, then finally to end, we've got Monday Night Football, and it's Wolves versus Everton. Now, Wolves have been on a good run. I mentioned Jimenez, mentioned Hwang. You should have put in Hwang by now if you've been listening to my videos. He's continued his run. I've had Jimenez, and he got me an assist last week, and it's either or with those two, but Hwang's where the value is. Just don't copy my team. I give out the good ideas, and I never heed my own advice because I'm just crazy like that. I just like to just do whatever I want. But yeah, Everton, very much in the Aston Villa style of things, where you just don't know which team they're going to put out. Was very disappointed in the way they played last week, and it cost me, certainly with the Rondon guess. It's a player that I'm thinking of changing because I just don't trust them. Everton are not a team I trust. The value for me is Townsend. Whether Demarai Gray will keep up his form, I think that's yet to be seen. But this might be a good time to cash out on Everton. So if you've gained the value on Townsend, if you've gained the value on Demarai Gray, I'd be looking to get rid of him, move on, and look elsewhere from some of the other sort of ideas that I've mentioned previously. Yeah, but Wolves stick with Hwang. If you've not got him, I still don't see no problem in putting him in based on the value, even if his fixture list starts to get more difficult. And that's the last thing we'll check here, is just how difficult Wolves' fixture list does finally get. So just a moment. Yeah, Everton home, Crystal Palace away, West Ham at home, Norwich. Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. I'd still get him in, get Hwang in. Hwang or Jimenez, but the way they play him, Jimenez drifts a bit more left and right into a number 10 position. It seems to be more of the assister in this formation, so I think he's going to slowly get slightly less points. I think Hwang is very much in the poacher role here. So yeah, something to really think about there. Wolves are, I think, sort of get your strikers in from the Wolves setup, I reckon. But yeah, Wolves, I'm back in. I'm going to go 2-1, Wolves versus Everton. And that's it, really, for all these fixtures. Let me know what you think. If there's anyone that I've missed off, is anyone that you think in the comments is good value for money? Who's been great in your team that I've not mentioned? And yeah, just take a look at my team here. I mean, if you've got an idea of someone you think I should be putting in out of my team, like I mentioned about maybe taking Sanchez out, moving the value over, getting a Mendy, and it is something I'm considering. Yeah, throw that in the comments, innit? Let's get a bit of a discourse going on what to do here. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.